Tyler from Aspire Sports. We got some breaking news here. It's probably not so much breaking when you hear this, but breaking news with Joe Mixon on IR. Would have been nice if they would have done this a few weeks earlier for us fantasy fans, right? Because then you can move some players around with, not having to worry about him going back on the IR, taking him off of IR. Would have been really nice. Would have been really nice. So what do you do now if you have him and say your IR spot's already taken up by like Christian McCaffrey, or maybe you don't have any IR spots? So what I think you should do is if you're fighting to make the playoffs and you can't put him on IR and you just have him sitting there and you need to pick somebody up, you got to drop him. Yes, he might be back for playoffs. They're saying that he's on IR for 3 weeks and then he's going to come back. But if you're fighting for a playoff spot and you need somebody now, you can't. You unfortunately you can't hang on to him. If you need the spot, you need to get rid of him. Cut ties. You just need a ticket to the big dance. That's all you need. Then you got a chance. Some crazy things can happen, but you need a ticket. And if you don't have a ticket, well, then your season's over. And if you need a spot, if you need to pick up somebody this week to win, then unfortunately you got to cut ties. But maybe you could also try to trade. Maybe your first place team might be sitting in a good spot. You could trade Joe Mixon to them, try to get something because it looks like he's going to be back for the fantasy playoffs. And this is a guy that was averaging second most touches in the NFL when he was playing. So, and in my opinion, this makes sense from a Cincinnati standpoint as well because you just paid him a bunch of money. We know running backs don't have, a long shelf life in the NFL. So this was a guy averaging second most rushing attempt, well, second most touches in the NFL before he got hurt. So yes, it just makes sense that get him 100% healthy. You're not going to make the playoffs this year. You're basically playing for nothing except these young guys getting some work in. So just place him on IR, get him healthy, go into next season. I do think next season he's going to be a really, really solid ad. Well, not ad, but really solid draft pick because I think this offense really going to take off next year. They got some really young players, and it looks very promising for the Cincinnati Bengals. Just need a little bit more help up front, and if they can get that, I honestly think this is a really good team heading into next season. So let's go ahead and talk about some players that you could add. Now, I don't think you're playing Joe Mixon because I think he was actually officially ruled out yesterday, but now he's definitely out for a while. So this is just if you need, even if you don't have Joe Mixon, you just need some help this week at the running back position. These are going to be people that are rostered in 50% or less of leagues. So let's go ahead and talk about the first one. And I think the first one that you definitely need to add is LaMichael Perine. They came out, said that he's going to be the guy going forward. Now, I want to believe it. I feel like they've kind of said we need to get him more work, and it really hasn't happened. But this just makes the most sense to me. Like I know Frank Gore hasn't been terrible, but at the same time, Jets are playing for nothing. So let's just get some guys in there to showcase themselves, basically show what they can do, and then see what happens next year. Because I think this is a young running back. Just see what you got, and if he's not it, then you got to find somebody else. But at least give him the chance. I think he'll get the chance, so 100% go out and get him. There's going to be somebody that's going to see a decent amount of touches a game, a lot of snaps, so go out and get him if he's still available. Next is going to be Adrian Peterson, and I don't feel great about this, but we know Swift is out. I honestly would probably prefer Kerryon Johnson over AP just because I think Kerryon's going to be the receiving back. I still think he's going to be involved in the run game. It's probably going to be Adrian Peterson, though, seeing most of the running rushes. But I do think Kerryon just carries more value in case I don't expect them to lose this game. I do expect them to win, especially if Teddy Bridgewater doesn't play, and it doesn't look like he's going to play. I don't think he's officially been ruled out, but I'd probably want Kerryon, especially in PPR. Yes, I would want Kerryon, but I do think both of them are okay plays, like really flex plays at the best, desperation plays, but I think you could do much worse, as you'll see as this list progresses here. But those two guys, if you're desperate, I think are decent plays. Next one is going to be Tony Pollard, and I do like him as kind of like a long-term ad as well. When I watched him against Pittsburgh, he has good bursts, like even more bursts than Elliott. I do think Elliott's obviously still the better running back, but I think these are two guys that they're going to want to get involved, and especially him as the season continually progresses, where they don't have that much to play for as well. So kind of see what you got, and I do think that they have a pretty decent running back in Tony Pollard. So I think he's going to be a little bit more involved this week. I think he sees probably like upwards of 10 touches, catches and rushes combined. So with somebody that's getting around that many touches, 8 to 10 touches, I think that's decent if you're desperate at the running back position. Next is going to be Matt Breida. This one too, I think it could be a sneaky ad long term as well. Well, not long term as in the rest of the season till possibly Myles Gaskin comes back. I do believe in Ahmed. I've heard both, so I don't know which one's the right saying, correct pronunciation of his last name. So I'm not sure which one it is. But I do believe that they think he's very good going forward. So, but I do think Matt Breida is going to be involved. Basically, there's going to be like right around 15 touches the previous game that's going to be up in the air for basically him to get and possibly even more. So a guy that's, or not touches, sorry, 15 snaps. So possibly 15 snaps and more for Matt Breida in that backfield. I do like that. That's decent opportunity, especially for somebody that's not the high owned. Let's go into the next one, and that's going to be Devontae Booker. Now, this is somebody that I think has RB2 value if something happens to Josh Jacobs. I think he's going to be the guy in this backfield. I do think this week I think the Raiders lose. I think Kansas City gets ahead on them. But if they don't, the way to beat Kansas City is definitely keeping that offense off the field, and they're going to run it. They're going to need to run the ball really effectively, which they certainly can. This is a pretty good run team, so run the ball effectively. You're not going to give Josh Jacobs 40 carries. I expect Devontae Booker to be involved decently, especially if the game plan goes the right way. I'm sure they just want to run the ball, control the clock, and if that's the case, he'd be a solid ad this week for a team. As long as it goes that way, I don't think it does. But if it does, then I do think he's going to be decently involved and is a decent like flex play this week. And the last one, this is like pure desperation. This is the bottom of the barrel here. Is Samaje Perine. Yes, Giovanni Bernard's probably going to take all the snaps and most of the work, but he also did play, I believe it was 25 snaps against Tennessee. Now, last week they just got completely blown out, so he didn't see that much, but he still had 7 carries. So last week they got blown out, had 7 carries, 48 yards, not too bad. So it could be worse, but I do think he's like more of a desperation play. But hey, that's where you're at right now. If you're looking at the bottom of the barrel here, that's where you're at. And I think this is somebody who, at least he's seeing carries, at least he's seeing some work, at least he's on the field for some plays, and that's all you can hope for. Saw 20 plays. That's decent at least. That's decent. So with that being said, thank you for watching. If you have Joe Mixon, I'm sorry, because I have Joe Mixon in a ton of my leagues and it sucks. But I do think next year, I honestly think next year, he's going to be a very good draft pick, a bit underowned because a lot of people will be mad at if they drafted him this year, how disappointing it's been. So I think he's going to be a little underappreciated. So you might get him a little bit later than what you did this year. So that's good. So I think he's going to be a solid draft pick next year. So with that being said, thank you for watching. We'll be live tomorrow. 10:30 to 1 o'clock, answering all your questions, talking about all the games, all the players. So, looking forward to seeing you there. Have a great day.